"This is our family failure," my brother announced, gripping my arm tightly as he dragged me in front of his fiancée's multimillionaire father. My parents stood beside him, nodding with smug smirks. "We don't brag about her," my mother chimed in, making sure the entire VIP table heard every syllable. I stood frozen in my modest dress, ready for the usual humiliation. But Arthur Vance, the logistics titan whose name was etched in gold across Chicago's skyline, didn't laugh. He stopped mid-drink, his eyes locked onto mine and the color drained from his face. "So it's you? This is unexpected." The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Drake Ballroom cast a warm golden glow over 400 guests in tailored tuxedos and designer gowns. It was the wedding reception of the decade. My brother Julian stood near the elevated head table, glass of vintage champagne in hand, basking in the adoration of everyone in the room. He was the golden child, the visionary founder whose supposed tech genius had captured the heart of Claire Vance, sole heiress to the Vance Logistics empire. I had tried to stay near the perimeter, wearing a simple navy dress I bought off the rack, content to observe quietly. But Julian had never been satisfied with just winning. He needed an audience to witness someone else losing. He caught my eye across the floor and waved me over with a sharp, commanding gesture. When I didn't move immediately, he walked over, clamped a heavy hand onto my upper arm, and steered me toward the most prominent table in the hall. My parents followed close behind, their eyes gleaming with familiar condescension. To my family, I was Elena the dropout, the disappointment who walked away from corporate finance to tinker with code and hardware in an old industrial warehouse. For 10 years they treated my work as a shameful secret, an embarrassment to the family name. Julian positioned me directly in front of Claire's father, smiling down at me like I was a stray dog he had dragged in from the rain. "Arthur, meet my sister Elena," Julian announced, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Our family failure. We only invited her so she wouldn't feel left out." My mother smoothed her velvet gown, adding a light, practiced laugh. "We don't brag about her, Arthur. Some children just lack the drive to build something real." I braced myself for the uncomfortable silence, the pitying polite nod high society men always gave before turning away. But Arthur Vance didn't turn away. The multimillionaire froze. His crystal tumbler stopped an inch from his lips, ice clinking softly against the glass. He set the drink down with deliberate care, his piercing gray eyes scanning my face, moving from my eyes down to the modest watch on my wrist and back up again. The arrogant smirk on Julian's face began to falter as the silence stretched from awkward to suffocating. "Elena," Arthur murmured, stepping forward. He completely bypassed Julian, stepping directly into my personal space. The color had visibly drained from his cheeks. "Elena Hartman?" "Yes, Mr. Vance," I said evenly. Arthur didn't offer a polite, single-handed greeting. He reached out with both hands, taking mine in a firm, reverent grip. "My God," Arthur breathed, his voice carrying across the hushed VIP table. 6 months ago, a ghost consultant rebuilt my entire automated shipping grid in 48 hours, saving Vance Logistics from an $80 million supply chain collapse. The only signature on the master architecture was E. Hartman. It was you. To understand the look of pure dread spreading across my brother's face, you have to understand how our family operated for the last decade. Julian was the golden boy who could do no wrong. When we finished college, our parents emptied half their retirement savings to hand him a $400,000 seed fund for his boutique tech consultancy. He leased a glass-walled corner office in downtown Chicago, wore tailored Italian suits, and spent his days taking prospective clients to high-end steakhouses. Whenever the conversation turned to business at Sunday dinners, Julian was the visionary CEO, and my parents hung on his every word. I took a very different road. I declined the safe corporate accounting track my father laid out for me, choosing instead to dive deep into back-end industrial automation and proprietary logistics software. My parents saw an old brick warehouse in the industrial district and called it a disgraceful hobby. They told relatives I had thrown my life away playing with spare circuit boards and server racks. Whenever I needed help or tried to share a milestone, Julian would scoff, telling our parents that real tech founders don't get their hands dirty with low-level maintenance. He even lifted several of my early network design concepts, rebranding them as his own pitch decks to secure local venture backing, ventures that quietly bled cash behind the scenes while he lived off credit and family praise. I never fought back with words. I simply went dark, founding Hartman Systems under a private holding LLC. I worked 80-hour weeks, writing custom algorithms that solved catastrophic bottleneck failures for massive freight and transport conglomerates. I didn't care about public recognition, luxury sports cars, or Forbes profile features. I cared about clean code, ironclad infrastructure, and building real equity. While Julian spent years burning through our parents' money to project the illusion of wealth, I had quietly built an 8-figure balance sheet and become the industry's most sought-after crisis architect. And now, the biggest client I had ever saved was standing 3 inches away holding my hand. A stunned silence blanketed the VIP table. My mother's champagne glass trembled slightly in her manicured hand, and my father's practiced, authoritative posture suddenly stiffened. Julian forced a nervous, choked laugh, trying desperately to regain control of the room. "Arthur, please," Julian stammered, stepping forward and placing a hand on the older man's arm. "You've got it twisted. Elena just does basic freelance IT support out of some dingy garage. If your company used a Hartman firm, that was through my enterprise consulting group. I run the high-level infrastructure operations. She probably just signed the administrative paperwork as an independent contractor." Arthur Vance slowly turned his head, removing Julian's hand from his sleeve with ice-cold precision. He didn't blink. "Julian, you pitched me 3 times last year," Arthur said, his tone razor-sharp and entirely devoid of warmth. "Your presentations were full of buzzwords, third-party subcontracting proposals, and zero proprietary architecture. When our Great Lakes shipping grid suffered a catastrophic cyber blackout in November, your firm couldn't even diagnose the root exploit. It was Hartman Systems LLC that deployed a custom patch within 4 hours." Arthur pulled a sleek leather phone from his inner coat pocket. With a few swift taps on the screen, he turned the display toward the table. On it was a high-resolution PDF of a master emergency services contract worth 7 figures, stamped with Vance Logistics' legal seal. "I personally reviewed the encrypted source code and signed off on the payment wire myself," Arthur continued, looking directly at my brother. "The lead engineer and sole managing partner listed on the incorporation charter wasn't you, Julian. It was Elena. In fact, my board authorized a $12 million retainment contract last week specifically for her team to oversee our global network migration." Claire, standing quietly in her custom bridal gown beside Julian, pulled back her arm from his grip. Her expression turned from confusion to cold, sharp scrutiny. "Julian, you told my father that you owned that logistics patent." Before Julian could answer Claire, my mother lunged forward, grabbing my wrist with frantic strength. "We need a private moment as a family," she hissed, forcing a tight smile toward the guests before dragging me down the corridor toward the bridal staging suite. Julian and my father rushed in right behind us, slamming the heavy wooden door shut. The smug superiority was completely gone from my brother's face, replaced by raw, unvarnished panic. "Elena, you have to fix this," Julian pleaded, pacing the Persian rug and running both hands through his slicked back hair. "Arthur can't find out the truth about my firm. I need this marriage. If the Vance family backs out now, I'm ruined. You have to tell Arthur you were just working as an employee under my corporate umbrella." My father stepped into my space, his expression stern and commanding, slipping right back into his old routine of demanding obedience. "Listen to your brother, Elena. This marriage secures our entire family's future. Sign over the proprietary licensing rights to Julian's company tonight. You don't need the spotlight anyway. You can do the real work in the background and he'll give you a generous salary." I looked at my parents, seeing the pure, ugly desperation in their eyes. For 28 years, I had taken their insults, accepted their dismissals, and funded my own path without asking for a single cent. "I'm not signing anything," I said, my voice steady and ice-cold. "And you might want to stop giving orders, Julian. Because Arthur isn't the only one who knows how to read corporate filings. I've already seen your prenuptial disclosures, and you committed outright fraud on your asset valuations." The heavy suite door swung open before Julian could utter another word. Arthur Vance stepped inside, flanked by 2 corporate security officers and Claire's senior family attorney. The warm, celebratory atmosphere of the wedding was officially dead. "That's enough," Arthur said, his voice cutting through the room like a steel blade. "I've heard everything I need to hear." My mother hurried forward, hands clasped pleadingly. "Arthur, please understand this is just a minor misunderstanding. Julian is the true leader of our family's enterprise. Julian is a fraud, Arthur interrupted flatly. He motioned to the attorney beside him, who pulled a thick manila dossier from his leather briefcase. When Elena's name surfaced tonight, my legal team ran a priority audit on the financial statements Julian submitted for the prenuptial agreement. His boutique consulting firm isn't worth $5 million. It's carrying over $2 million in defaulted commercial debt and facing 3 active breach of contract lawsuits. Julian's face went completely bloodless. He dropped down onto a velvet armchair, staring blankly at the floor as his entire fabricated empire unraveled in seconds. Claire appeared in the doorway, removing her diamond engagement ring and handing it directly to her father. She didn't spare Julian a single glance. The reception is over, Julian. My father's security will escort you and your parents off the premises immediately. My father attempted to raise his voice, demanding respect, but the security team stepped forward, blocking his path with silent authority. My parents stood frozen, realizing too late that their relentless pursuit of status, built entirely on my brother's empty lies, had collapsed into absolute public humiliation. They had spent years mocking their only successful child, and now they were being walked out the back door in total disgrace. 3 months after the disastrous wedding, the dust had completely settled. Julian's firm filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, unable to survive without the projected Vance family bailout or my stolen blueprints. My parents were forced to downsize to pay off the personal loans they had co-signed for his lavish lifestyle. When the desperate phone calls and tearful voicemails began pouring in, begging for financial help, asking to reconnect as a family, and pretending the years of cruelty never happened, I blocked their numbers without hesitation. Meanwhile, Hartman Systems finalized the $12 million global automation contract directly with Vance Logistics. Arthur Vance turned out to be the fiercest corporate ally I could have ever asked for, treating my technical expertise with the dignity and respect it always deserved. I'm sitting in my new glass-walled office overlooking the Chicago River, sipping hot black coffee on a quiet Tuesday morning. I spent a decade being ridiculed as the family disappointment, but real success doesn't need loud boasts, expensive suits, or unearned praise. Quiet competence always speaks for itself in the end. And for the first time in my life, I am completely, unapologetically free.